Testing. So I think we're live. Maybe. Yeah, okay, so I think we're live. Um, let's see. Yeah, I think we're good. Hang on. Let's give this a moment. Let me just put this link over there. Okay, so here we are. And basically here's our weather situation right now. Yes, we are streaming. Here's our weather situation. So we have this line of storms over here. Um, and this has been making its way eastward over the course of the evening. There's some latency. Give this a moment. And I need to edit something. Give me a moment. So, is my mic on? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, here's our, and I lost this. Here's our current situation, and we have this line of storms that's been making its way eastward through the course of the evening. It's currently moving into Rockford. It'll be approaching DeKalb County in the next few minutes. And for our area specifically, let's go to the Chicago radar. This thing has been making its way east at about 50 miles an hour. And so if you track this out, it's about 60 to 70 miles away. So we're probably looking at it arriving in our area around 8:30-ish, which around 8:30-ish, which is a little bit earlier than we were expecting. And this line of storms has I think pickleball is doable at 9:30. Probably not, and I'll explain why in a moment. Um, hi Isabella. Hi. I don't know who. But I do not think pickleball will be doable in Aurora at 9:30. And the reason is because the thing that's fueling these storms, you see behind the front edge of the storm, if we put this radar loop in motion, we have this huge area of rain, and this is what we call a cold pool. And it's common in these summertime severe weather setups where you have this cool layer left behind by the storms, and that's what's pushing these storms forward. And these storms have caused some major issues to our west. In Davenport, Iowa, we had a tornado go through earlier, and now we have major flooding. We actually have a flash flood emergency for Davenport. And that's very rare. You don't see that very often, as some areas have gotten upwards of 5 inches of rain. But again, it's the main part of this line of storms that we're concerned for severe weather is this front edge. That's in general when you have a line of storms, that's where you're concerned for the severe weather potential. Now, if we take a look at what's moving into Aurora and Naperville, we have if you look at what's moving into Aurora and Naperville, it's sort of this segment of storms. It's making its way eastward, and that's going to be moving into Aurora and Naperville, as we said earlier, probably around 9:30. And the big thing is that this segment of storms has intensified, and it does seem like it'll be a severe weather. It will be severe wind still as it's moving through. You can see these yellow boxes are severe thunderstorm warnings. Let's go to the velocity, and I think this is a better view. And we are seeing evidence of some really gusty winds approaching 60 miles an hour in spots with these storms, and that's what we expect throughout the evening. Um, let's take a look at here is a look at the here's a look at the satellite imagery of this, and you can see it's a massive thunderstorm complex. And I'll turn all these little markings you see, that's where there's lightning, and you can see it will be an absolute light show by the time these storms make their way into Aurora and Naperville. Just a light show. And again, though, so stay inside, and even behind the main line of storms, it's, as I said, still a lot of rain. So even I know, I'm seeing the comments. Do you think pickleball is doable at 9:30? This area of rain behind it. Oh, I need to go back to radar. I'm getting there. It's this line of rain. This area of rain that's behind it, behind the line of storms. It's not. This area is not going to produce severe weather, but you'll still get quite a bit of rain. I do think we'll probably see around an inch of rain today. Most areas saw over an inch of rain last night. I will say I'm not expecting major flooding issues, because as you can see, once these storms are through an area, you're done, at least with a really heavy rain. So let's see, are tornadoes likely, and if so, how strong? They're not very likely. This line of storms has been fairly disorganized, and even if they do happen, I seriously doubt there would be anything stronger than an EF0 or EF1. So let's here is a look at how these storms are probably going to progress. So here's where we're at right now, and as you can see, they moved through the area overnight, and then it's still raining. This is by 1 a.m. today, or 2 a.m., and we're still getting some rain. The severe weather risk will be over by around after the main line of storms move through, but we're still going to see rain. Going back to radar. But yeah, these storms have caused quite a few issues to the west. The good news is they're weakening at this point. Let's see. Yeah. And so yeah, again, this was the SPC outlook for today, and really the Storm Prediction Center, they nailed it. The storms have progressed across Iowa, and they're starting to weaken as they enter our area, which is a little bit less stable. I'll show you what this is what we use to determine the environment that a storm has to work with. And you can see this is how much instability is in any. This is how much instability we're looking at, and this contour over here is about 3,000 joules per kilogram, which is a fairly unstable environment. But you can see this line of storms is kind of running out of instability. But even and then the other thing we always take a look at is the helicity. This is how much spin there is in the atmosphere, and this helps us determine how much of a tornado risk we're looking at. And it's not anything crazy. We're seeing about 150 meters squared per second squared, and what that means is somewhat of a tornado risk, especially when it's this unstable, but it's certainly nothing major. It's nothing like, for example, what we saw last July. It's not anywhere in that league. But back to radar. Let's see. We'll take a look at the velocity. So I did do a post on my Instagram explaining how velocity works, but basically the radar site is, I'll show you, it's over here in Romeoville. And you can see greens are where there's strong winds moving towards the radar, especially when you have these bright greens. And so we'll have to watch as these storms get closer. Do we see more of a damaging wind signature? We have you can see these bright colors. These are where there could be damaging winds. That's why we have the severe thunderstorm warnings in effect. But so far, we haven't seen anything tremendous. Obviously, we hope it stays that way. Now, as far as the tornado risk, there's weak signs of rotation we're seeing, but usually you want to see like a tight red and green signature together. That's not really what we're seeing. You know, we have some rotation here, but it's really not much. We do have, let's take a look north. We do have a stronger segment of this line now moving into Wisconsin. We have a tornado warning that will expire soon in Rock and I don't know which county this is, in Jefferson and Rock counties. And again, this is kind of a stronger segment of the line. You always watch when you get sort of this bowing structure, you always have to keep an eye on what's going on. And this segment of the storms will approach places like Waukesha and eventually Milwaukee. I will say it's not looking as impressive on velocity as it was earlier. Let's put this radar into motion. And we had a stronger sort of a tornado signature. If you look here a few minutes ago, and we're just not really seeing that. Let's see. And again, these storms now also moving through Madison. And they'll move into the Milwaukee metro probably in the next half hour to an hour. Let's see. Taking a look at our area, let's take another look. So we have a severe thunderstorm warning. It's saying it's moving east at 35. Let's see this one, about 40. So if we estimate about 40 miles an hour on our storm motion, it probably has, probably an hour to an hour and a half until it gets here. I will say I do think that's a bit of an underestimate on the storm motion. And usually, what you'll notice is I was talking about that cold cooler there, all this rain behind it. And this little segment, you'll see there's more rain developing behind it. And the cold pool is often what propagates these storms. It's what pushes the storms forward. So that's why I think probably 8:30 is about when this line of storms will get here. Right now, the segment of storms that we're watching, because this is what's going to be moving into Aurora and Naperville. It does have a severe thunderstorm warning on it. I'm not sure if they'll extend it. We'll see. We are seeing some signs of a damaging wind signature on velocity. Again, you see these bright greens indicating winds moving towards the radar site in Romeoville. But it's not. Keep in mind the criteria for a severe thunderstorm warning is about 60 miles an is winds of 60 miles an hour, specifically actually 58. And we're seeing velocities near that, but we're not seeing anything quite exceeding that. Let's see. But yeah, as we watch this line of storms, what's kind of happened, and this was cool to watch, we had this part of this segment of storms that are now moving towards Aurora. It's kind of overtaken storms behind it. Watch these storms back here, and you'll see how they kind of die out while this segment of storms essentially dominates. And that's because basically what this line of storms is doing, it's getting ahead of it and it's leaving cold air behind. Why 58 miles an hour specifically? So basically, in meteorology, we mainly use knots as our unit of measurement. Knots are also used in like aviation and like shipping, and ships. But the criteria for a severe thunderstorm is 50 knots, which the conversion is 58 miles an hour. So that's why 58 miles an hour is specifically, although usually we just round to 60. That's a good question though. And again, we're watching at this point. We're just watching. We do have a little bit of rotation. This is interesting. Trying to determine which radar site will be the closest. The site in Chicago is picking up on a little rotation signature. This is down. This is north of Peoria. About maybe 40 miles north of Peoria. Maybe about 30. But again, there's some signs of rotation here. If we go to the basically what this does, this filters out the storm motion, and we kind of see a weak velocity signature that it definitely has to be monitored. The closer of the two radar sites isn't showing it as, actually it kind of is now, isn't showing it as well defined. Now, basically, what does it mean when different radar sites show different things? So basically, ideal in a perfect world, radar would scan the ground because let me switch my camera. It would scan the ground because that way we get a clearer understanding of what's going on the ground. But that's not possible because the Earth curves. So as the radar beam goes in a straight line, it gets higher off the ground because the ground is curving. The Earth is round and the beam is not able to curve with it. So as a result, the farther you are from the radar site, the higher the radar beam is detecting things. And that's a problem because for something like tornadoes or these or damaging winds and severe thunderstorms, we want to scan as low as we can because that gives us a more precise understanding of what's going on in the storm. So I'll keep my camera in the little snapshot. But again, we'll have to monitor. Again, there absolutely is still a tornado risk with these storms. It's low. Again, the main concern is damaging winds and heavy rainfall, and of course lightning, which any summer storm you're concerned about. We also sorry, I can't talk. The other area of storms we were watching was this little cluster of storms up here. These developed north of Aurora. We were concerned that some of these, this was what essentially I called the round one in my Instagram post earlier today. But these really have not organized much. There was concern that these could develop into strong supercell storms that rotate and are capable of producing a pretty robust tornado risk, but that hasn't really happened. And then, as I said, this big line of storms we're seeing, that's the round two. So yeah, good thing these things haven't really developed. There were funnel cloud reports with them, but I haven't heard of any actual damage, so that's certainly good. And again, those storms are not something we need to worry about anymore. They're moving over the lake. Now has shifted to become our focus. You guys should be able to see my mouse pointer. Hang on. Okay. Do you think it'll weaken as it gets closer to the lake? That's a good question. I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. The past few days we've had a lake breeze where what we've had is colder air moving off the lake, and in the storms we've been seeing for the past few days, they have weakened as they approach the lake because in essence the lake breeze, as the storms move over that colder air, they don't have as much fuel for them to develop. But here's the thing, I just turned on temperatures, and if anything, the temperatures are getting warmer to the lake. The warmest temperature I'm seeing is 89 at Midway right now. So I really don't. And if we take a look at dew points, the other thing that storms need is moisture, and the dew point is an approximation of how much moisture. And we have dew points in the low 70s. They're a little bit lower at Midway, but that's normal because it's over an urban area. So again, these storms really have everything they need to keep going. They might weaken a little just because what will happen is they'll start to go more outflow dominance, where the cold air that sinks from the storms kind of cuts off the warm air that's fueling it. That will start to happen as these storms progress, but it certainly hasn't shown any signs of happening yet. Um, so now we'll see whether the Weather Service will extend the severe thunderstorm warning. I'm leaning towards thinking they probably will. We are still seeing somewhat of a straight line wind signature, and these storms have been quite problematic through the towards the west. So I do think they'll probably extend these severe thunderstorm warnings. Not quite for our area just yet, but the other thing we're seeing is the possibility of some hail. This is here just west of the town of Granville in Bureau County. And you can see those pink colors. Those are very high radar returns that could potentially be indicating some hail. I haven't seen any reports of hail at this point, but it's certainly something to watch for. Um, let's see. Um, do you think it'll form into a derecho? This isn't really a derecho. Derechos usually are more powerful, and they're usually more long-lived. The formal criteria for a derecho, I don't remember the exact criteria, but it has to. I know one thing it has to do is travel 400 miles while remaining while remaining really intense, and it hasn't quite done that. For those of you who don't know, a derecho is a really intense line of storms that moves over a wide area. If you guys remember that storm we had last year that produced a lot of tornadoes and wind damage, it was on July 15th. That was a derecho. We've had a few other derechos in our area as well. Some of you guys might remember back in August of 2020, there was a really bad one, but this is not going to be a derecho. Um, let's see. Um, remember that storm? Um, yeah. Uh, let's see. Yeah, these storms are now moving near the town of Princeton in Illinois. Those folks had a tornado warning last night, which was kind of unexpected since we thought the storms were weakening. I don't think there was a tornado, at least from what I've seen so far. Um, but continue to see. One sign that maybe the storms are weakening a little is if you watch how bright these colors are on the front edge of the storms. They've kind of weakened. They've kind of lost, especially those pink colors, a little bit. Now, I will say I've been tracking this all day as it moved through Iowa. I don't think these storms are done yet. They've been kind of cycling. Um, one cool feature we have. So this is called Echo Tops, and it tells us how high the storms are. So these yellow is indicating cloud tops of about 50,000 feet. The darker greens are about 35,000 feet. And the reason it's so useful is because how high these storms are going it gives us a pretty good idea of how powerful they are. And if we put this into motion, you can kind of see this storm over here. I'll highlight it. This storm over here has kind of weakened, at least for now, whereas this segment of storms over here has kind of been now intensifying. So that is something to watch. This is a really useful tool though to have. Let's see. And this rotation signature has definitely gotten stronger. You can see, I'll go to storm relative velocity, and you can see the red and greens now, and it is tight. It's not quite that strong, but it's certainly tight. And that, again, we'll see. This warning does not right now have any mention of a tornado, the severe thunderstorm warning. But we'll see. Let's look at this radar side, and we're seeing something. This is kind of more of a messy signature. Yeah, it's kind of this a bit more messy on the Quad Cities radar, which is a little closer. But let's see. But yeah, will we'll have to watch that. Still no updates to the severe thunderstorm warnings as of right now. But yeah, the only severe thunderstorm warning in effect right now from the Weather Service in Chicago is this one in Lee County. And then we have this one in Bureau and Putnam counties issued by the National Weather Service in Davenport, Iowa. And the Weather Service in Chicago will probably extend this one soon for LaSalle County. Let's see. let's take a look at with this segment of storms, the only more intense part that we're seeing is this area approaching McHenry County. Let's go to the radar site in Milwaukee. That'll give us a closer look at all of this. You can see, so we have this Boeing segment approaching Milwaukee. I explained earlier, a Boeing segment is where where the storms kind of bow out, and that's a sign you're going to get some damaging winds. So Milwaukee will probably be in the path of this soon. Again, not seeing any though insane returns on velocity. Again, with velocity, it's a lot like looking at these storms through an X-ray. It gives us a much better idea of what's going on inside the storms. So I know it's kind of confusing to someone who's never read it, but this data is absolutely critical for us. Let's go here. I'm just seeing some new info, so I want to read that. We have a discussion out from the National Weather Service in Chicago. I'm just trying to read this right now. So, what they've been noting is that here's the thing: when you have a line of storm, so with wind shear, wind shear is when you have winds that go in different directions throughout the atmosphere, and it's critical because it keeps a storm from dropping its own cold air over the same place where it's getting its warm, moist air from. And today the wind shear is kind of northeast, and the reason this segment of storms in Wisconsin has kind of been more dominant is because it's oriented more northeast, so it can take full advantage of that. So the main area that they're watching for, they are noting going forward, the forecaster suspects that the main severe threat will remain tied to deeper cores which can sustain and move northeast atop eastward surging outflow. And what that means is we're watching storms that can kind of orient themselves more like this. And I do think I'm really carefully watching this segment of storms because this is starting to go more dominant, and I'm wondering if it's going to start to turn this way. Because not only would that cause that part of storms to be able to sustain itself, but it would also be it would also then move into our area. As you can see, this area, again, this is what we're watching, and if it does make more of a northeasterly storm motion, that takes it into Aurora and Naperville. How do you determine which radar site to use? It's kind of just I figure out which one's the closest. Most of the times. It's kind of as simple as that. I mean, look, I've tracked so many storms in general from the location. I just know which one to use. I will say for these storms, it's kind of a two-way between Davenport and in Chicago, and you could probably use either. The Weather Service actually, I don't know if you saw this morning box go away. They've actually just canceled the severe thunderstorm warning, and that I think that's a sign that these storms are weakening, and you can see it's a lot more disorganized. That being said, just to the south here in Borough County, we have more of a sustained storm structure that could stay severe. So that's kind of becoming our main focus in Illinois. Behind this segment of storms, we do have this whole area of storms, but here's the issue. I talked about this earlier. We are looking for storms to be perpendicular this shear, and the shear is this way. So this line of storms is basically parallel to the shear. That being said, they're kind of training. They're moving over the same areas, and these could be a major flood issues. You see these green boxes that are out for flood warnings. We actually have a flash flood emergency for Davenport, Iowa right now. Yeah, we have a flash flood emergency. We're seeing reports of stalled vehicles and flooded first floors. So that's what these storms have been doing across the area. And then again, up here in Wisconsin, watching this segment of storms, which was stronger earlier, we did have tornado warnings earlier with this segment of storms. But they've kind of bowed out more. They've become more of a straight line wind risk. What areas are going to get the worst storms? Again, that's what honestly right now I'm trying to determine in northern Illinois, it's probably going to be with these storms over here as they move north, probably into LaSalle County, Kendall, Grundy, and Will. That's my guess because the if we go more north, these storms haven't really been doing much. Um, but yeah, we'll see. I do think the Weather Service in Chicago will probably issue a severe thunderstorm warning soon for LaSalle County. Let's also keep an eye on that area of rotation we're watching, and that it's still very much there. It's near the town of Henry. I'm forgetting which county this is now. Um, but you can see. Let's go to storm relative velocities. That's easier. You can kind of see how the wind's going away from the radar towards, and then if we go to reflectivity, you can kind of see the little cell that's been rotating like that. If you take a look at the Davenport radar, which is kind of in between, we also can kind of see that cellular structure of the storm. And again, it's right over here that we're watching near the town of Henry. Again, it's not that strong right now. They're not going to issue a tornado warning in a situation like this where it's a really weak area of rotation because again, we don't want to cry wolf. But if this area of rotation strengthens, it definitely could go tornado warned. I'm trying to determine. We did get a flash flood warning just now for these storms. That'll pop up in a moment. Um, but yeah, these storms are still producing some heavy rain, and the main reason also I think we got a flash flood warning for this area is because these areas got a lot of rain last night, and when the soil is so soaked, it doesn't take much new rainfall to cause some flash flooding. So yeah, that's why we have a flash flood warning for this area in Borough and Putnam counties now. Um, but yeah, this severe thunderstorm warning, which just expired, but they've issued a new one now. So again, the Weather Service does think that these storms are still severe. You can see the flash flood warning that popped up. We can actually see about how much rain has fallen, and from some of these storms, you can see. Now let's see, when did this started? Now, this includes the rain from last night. That's a caveat. So it's not that this specific storm has dumped 4 inches of rain over this area, but it is just showing how much rain this area has gotten and why we have that flood warning out. Again, this is for Borough, it's for Granville, places like that. And these storms will move east northeastward and into the Weather Service in Chicago's area of responsibility soon. They've actually also been letting these warnings up here in Wisconsin expire, and this line of storms, I think it's kind of run out of instability to work with. Let's go back to the analysis here. Um, Here we go. You can see these lines are kind of indicating where there's instability, and if we look up in Wisconsin, they're kind of running out of it, whereas the more robust instability is down here in Illinois right now. Let's go back to radar. But yeah, let me show you. Here's how these storms. I'm putting together a radar loop of how these storms have been all day today. Here's kind of a look at the journey, if you will, that these storms have taken. That's not supposed to happen. That these storms have taken, and you can see they formed this afternoon in Iowa. This was shortly past noon, and it was these little discrete supercells merging with this big line of storms, and these have kind of just all come together as they approach our area. And you can see it's definitely weakening a little. You see how this line of really heavy rain with these storms have kind of thinned out in the last few frames, and that's definitely a sign that they're weakening. Let's take a look at lightning though, because lightning can often be a good indicator of where we have strong storms, and there's still plenty for lightning. Each little icon you see here is a lightning strike, so these are absolutely light shows. Let's see. We don't have any update on warnings from the Weather Service in Chicago. And again, we do still have that tornado watch for the entire area. Let's go to this segment of storms, and you can see this has gotten more of a well-defined damaging wind signature, and I think the question will be, can these turn northeasterly? If they can take more of a northeasterly orientation, they could definitely sustain themselves as they move into Aurora Naperville. The area of rotation down here is kind of weakened, and of course that's good news. It's kind of fallen behind in the storm where it doesn't have any instability to work with. And what is instability? So instability is kind of the way storms work is that they need very warm air near the surface and they need really cold air aloft. And basically that allows the warm air to rise and keep rising because they're and keep rising. And so that the more of a gradient you have in those lapse rates, the more instability you get. The other thing that matters is water vapor and moisture, because these storms need moisture to form, but there's no shortage of that today. So no updates in the warnings that I see. Yeah. Honestly, oh, not this part. But you can see the stronger part of the storms. Now they're moving through the town of Borough. They'll move into Granville, and then they'll move into Peru, Oglesby, Utica. Those are in LaSalle County. And let's see, how are these storms moving? And they really have been moving fast. The storm motion I'm seeing on the warning is about 15 miles an hour, and they've kind of slowed down. Now they're not really moving at 15, and they're kind of being pushed forward by this area of rain, but we still have some time before they move into our area. So let's see. And of course, if you have questions, please ask them in the chat. But yeah, again, we are seeing some pretty good signs of damaging winds. Again, reaching 57, 58 miles an hour. And again, these are still aloft. Sometimes in this sort of environment, usually the storms are a little bit stronger seem a little bit stronger when we're looking at them from aloft. But even then, we probably still have some very strong winds ongoing with them. The Davenport radar site, it's not at a good angle to really be measuring wind speeds. I think the Chicago radar site is better with where these storms are and which direction the winds in these storms are going. You really want the winds in the storm to be parallel to the radar beam because that's the Doppler effect can only measure the winds that are tangential to it. And let's see. Of course, we're staying tuned right now. Keep asking your questions. They've canceled the tornado watch for Ogle and Winnebago counties, and again, those are these two counties, like for places like Rockford, Rochelle, and that's because these areas are done with the storms. Still plenty of heavy rain behind them, but no more storms for them. Let's see. We'll see. Eventually, the weather service in Chicago will have to make a decision on whether they'll issue a severe thunderstorm warning for LaSalle County because but for now we're still I think they're gonna wait and see how these storms progress. The last thing you want to do is weaken or issue a warning and then they weaken very shortly after. If we take a look at how much these storms have moved, so this is the radar frame at 752, and we'll go back and we're tracking that main gust front, and it moved about 30 miles in an hour. So again, moving about 30 miles an hour. So we're probably talking, again, probably around 9. I know I'm pushing it back a little, but these storms have also slowed down a little. Any power outage reported? That's a good question. I'm sure this line of storms has produced power outages in further west. Let's take a look. Yeah, in the northwest corner of the state, we have seen some issues. Not too many, besides in Joe Davis County, which did get hit the hardest of any county in Illinois. They actually had a severe thunderstorm warning earlier for 90-mile-an-hour wind gusts. But other than that, I'm not seeing any counties with widespread outages. So that's definitely a good sign. Power outages are honestly, I'm glad you brought that up because power outages are a really good way of determining how strong a storm is. It's not perfect, obviously, but in general, if you're not seeing many power outages, that's a sign it's maybe producing gusty winds, but not necessarily very destructive derecho type winds. So obviously, certainly a good sign. Um, I'm just thinking. I will say that as a caveat, sometimes power outages don't get reported immediately, but we'll have to keep watching. Um, we are definitely though seeing. You can see how bright these velocity signatures have got. This velocity image has gotten. Again, those are signs of kind of a surge of strong winds. That gust front you get in storms. It's right here. Pushing through the town of Ladd, the town of Arlington, just north of Borough Junction in Granville in Borough County, Illinois. I can't imagine that the Weather Service wouldn't extend the severe thunderstorm warning into LaSalle County just because we are seeing those radar signatures. Normally they would extend the warning. And not yet. We're seeing the same thing here. As I said, the thing is that the winds here are going like that, and you want the winds to be tangential to the radar beam so that then the Doppler effect can really read how strong the winds are. The problem is when we look at the radar site in Davenport, Iowa, even though it's closer, the radar beam isn't really parallel to the winds. On the other hand, if you take a look at the one in Chicago, here's where the radar site is, and the radar beam is kind of parallel to those winds. So that's why I'm using the radar site in Chicago for a better estimate of these wind speeds. Let's see. Yeah, and again, looking further to the south, we had that area of rotation if we go back a few frames, and you see where we have that like tight gradient, and that's kind of died out. Maybe we have a little something here, but again, we'll have to watch. I will say though, if you remember what I said earlier about storms that move more north easterly, these storms are going more than northeast, and that's the main reason why they've been able to sustain themselves better than the other storms, which have been moving more easterly. But again, that's the part of the storms that will move into Aurora and Naperville. Let's see. Yeah, and then again, as usual, keep asking your questions. But yeah. And wow, this the latest radar scan, and this was a minute ago, has honestly, I mean, now we're getting readings in the 60s, and you can see that you can kind of see how this has developed. This gust front has kind of gotten quite a bit brighter, and of course, when you have that, you worry about damaging winds. Let's see. No updates to the warnings yet. Uh, let's see. But I would not be surprised if they go ahead and issue a severe thunderstorm warning for the northern part of LaSalle County here, given what we're seeing on radar. Um, the other thing is, before I make any claims, definitely a good sign I'll be saying is that I haven't heard of any damage reports, and usually that's a good thing. Again, they are moving over cornfield country, and sometimes that means that it takes a while before we hear about any damage, but so far we have not. Again, this segment of storms, we have not heard of any damage. Further to the west, with the storms that are now weakening up here, back when they were in this part of Illinois, we did have problems, but we really have not received much in the way of damage reports. We do have widespread flooding issues across the Quad Cities. We actually have a flash flood emergency right now for that area. And if you look at how much rain those folks have gotten, we've had reports of buildings flooding, but if you take a look at how much rain has gotten. Now that was because they not only that you can see up to 5 inches of rain in spots. Again, this is radar estimated, but 6 inches. Let's see if you have any rainfall reports. Yeah, well, we have flooding reports for sure. But yeah. The Weather Service in Chicago has issued a special weather statement, so not a severe thunderstorm warning, but still, it's not a severe thunderstorm warning, but they've issued a bulletin for these storms, for 55-mile-an-hour winds, so basically approaching severe limits, and this is for the northern section of LaSalle County, or I think it might be for all of LaSalle County. Um, hmm, Definitely could be for all of LaSalle County. Let's see. It's for the kind of for the northwest corner. It'll pop up on the radar screen eventually, but they are warning of 55-mile-an-hour winds, which are basically approaching severe limits. And again, it wouldn't surprise me if, again, these storms are still intensifying if they start heading towards severe limits again. I will say the weather center in Chicago is more hesitant. As I said, as these storms cross this county line, they're moving from the Weather Service in the Quad Cities area of responsibility to the Weather Service in Chicago's area of responsibility. The National Weather Service in Chicago is often a little bit more hesitant to warn for storms for whatever reason. Good thing, bad thing, it depends. I know they certainly want to keep their false alarm ratio low, but again, it's really this area of clearly what have been approaching severe level winds. And again, this will move into our area if we just watch how these storms have evolved. Yeah. Um, and again, it's moving. The thing is, it's kind of hard to visualize if you're not someone like me who's been doing this, but we kind of have outflow that's surging ahead of the old storms. And as this storm moves right along it, it'll be able to take full advantage of that and that gradient in temperature and intensify. Um, so again, we'll have to keep watching that. How strong do they have these storms? These storms are moving northeast at 40 miles an hour, and that's about what we determined. Just ask the storm to chill out nicely. Problem solved. That would be fun. Let's see. You know, last year when we had a tornado in my neighborhood, I was saying, I watched as the circulation developed in DeKalb County, and I was like, oh boy, like this is not, this has a beeline for me, and sure enough, it did. So that's kind of interesting. This is a new radar scan, and again, the reason, yes, radar is showing signs of winds above severe limits, but I think the reason the Weather Service in Chicago is choosing not to is because one, we haven't had any damage reports, which makes us question, are these winds actually near the ground? And two, the radar beam is kind of high. We actually have a tool that allows us. So the beam height is about 4,500 feet above the ground, which isn't horrible to track, but it still doesn't give us the full picture. Now, the good news is the radar site is in Romeoville, so as they approach our area in Aurora Naperville and the Chicago Metro, we'll get a better look at them. So that's certainly a good news. That's certainly good news. And then let's see. The other thing I'm really watching, these storms have kind of redeveloped, and while they're unlikely to be severe, if they're going to move over the same areas as the first round of storms, and that could certainly bring some flooding concerns. The good news is we only got about an inch of rain last night. It wasn't like some areas that have gotten in excess of 3 or 4 yesterday. But we'll still have to watch for if these storms do move over our all move over our area. We certainly could see a few inches of rain in a short period of time, which might prompt flood warnings. So we'll have to see. Again, we already have this flash flood warning in Borough County where they got more rain last night. So again, if you're just joining, we're kind of tracking this line of storms and specifically this segment over here near that's now moving into LaSalle County. This will be here probably around the top of the hour, and it has been showing signs of some really strong wind gusts. So again, that's our main concern. There still is a tornado risk. I'm not going to say there isn't, but these storms would really have to take advantage of the environment. Again, they have plenty of energy. It's just that they're not really oriented in a way that's favorable. Um, and then let's take a look up in Wisconsin. So again, this whole segment of storm is now approaching Waukesha, and then they'll be in Milwaukee in the next half hour or so. We have a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag where these strongest storms are, and I'll tell you why. You can kind of see this notch over here near, it's a place called Town of Erin. And there's some, it's not much, but you can see these really bright outbound velocities, and if a little inflow notch can form here, we certainly could see an area of rotation develop. So again, if you're up in southwest Wisconsin, if you haven't gotten the storms yet, you will in the next half an hour. And if we take a look back to the west, you can see widespread rain with this cold pool. Again, this part of the storms, because they're so oriented in an unfavorable direction with respect to the upper level winds, they're not that much of a severe weather risk, but they are a flooding risk because unlike this segment of storms, which is just moving out of the area, these segment of storms are kind of moving over the same area as the last one. That's what we call training, and the reason it's called training is because it's like, imagine a train and each train has compartments. It's the same thing. Each storm is moving over the same as the last one. It's following the first one. And again, that's why we've been having flooding problems. I do think the worst of these training storms will miss us to the south. I'd be more concerned about flooding problems maybe down south of I-80. But also have to watch. Let's see, these storms are now approaching Kane and Kendall counties. So, again, you can kind of see these storms have really been dying out. They just haven't been able to sustain themselves. Their outflow, their cold air that's shooting out ahead of it has kind of gotten the best of it, with the except. So that's why we're not really seeing those bright colors that we're seeing down here where the strong winds are. Down here, though, this signature is definitely intensifying. It would not surprise me if the Weather Service went ahead and issued a severe thunderstorm warning for this. And it would be a smaller area than where you see the white box for the special weather statement, but we will have to watch that. If we track where this storm is headed, to get an idea of where this might be an issue long term. So we'll look at where this storm was earlier. You can see probably Aurora couldn't miss us to the north, but we'll continue to watch. The good news is not really seeing any strong indication of rotation at this point. Again, it still needs to be watched. We're still under a tornado watch for a reason. but this doesn't seem like it's going to be a what's the word? A major tornado event, which we were a little bit concerned about earlier today, that we could see numerous tornadoes, and that is not really panning out. Um, hmm. If we look further south, because why not? We have this line of storms moving through Missouri. This is kind of the same line of storms, but and again, this has prompted severe thunderstorm warnings across Kansas City. This is a really good example of what I mean by outflow. If we take a look at these storms, again, this is down near Kansas City, but I'll just demonstrate. You kind of see this line that's moving out ahead of it. Now, what is this? This isn't rain. Radar will detect anything that's in the air. It could be whether it be rain, whether it be bugs. If there's enough stuff in the air, it'll detect it. And the thing is that this is the cold air that's shooting out ahead of the storms, and that cold air is picking up little things. It's picking up dust, it's picking up bugs. You can't see it, but the radar is picking up on that, and it's a great way we have to determine where that change of direction, wind direction is, and where that outflow is pushing out to. Um, but let's see, we're watching this area. The latest signature, you can actually see these bright colors have kind of weakened a little. Now, whether we'll have to look at the next few frames that come in to determine will they continue weakening or not. By the way, if you're in the city of Chicago, you can probably expect this around 9:30 to 10 would be my guess when these storms would move in. Um, hmm, let's see. Yeah. I will say today has certainly not been a worst case scenario. Obviously, as I said, we were more worried that this could be a more widespread event. I'll show you. Uh, here is again, here's a regional radar loop, and you can really see the part of the storm sweeping into our area has kind of died out. I'll overlay the Storm Prediction Center outlook just to show you where these storms are. And really, they have. And really, I'm just seeing you can kind of see how they're dying out, and that's just because they're moving into their own area of cold air. That's what I've been talking about with the outflow. Um, we are still in the slight risk in the Storm Prediction Center. Let's just see the specifics of that. So yeah, we still are in the level 2 out of 5 slight risk in the Storm Prediction Center. Parts of the area were in a level 3 out of 5 earlier. Um, but hang on. But yeah, here this is the latest outlook right now, and you can see, so it's still a low risk for tornadoes. They're basically what these percentages mean is that it's the probability of a tornado within 25 miles of a point. So earlier we were in a 5% risk. They've downgraded it to a 2% just because, again, we haven't really been seeing much of a tornado risk with this. But again, that risk is still there. Going back to radar. We kind of have, let's take a look at this area up in northern Kane County, since we have kind of seen a stronger signature with that. Probably the radar site in Milwaukee would get a better look at that. Not really seeing much of a velocity signature, so the winds haven't really done anything, but you can kind of see this little cell up near Hampshire and Pine Creek Grove they're a little bit stronger. You can see the pink, so maybe they might be able to produce some hail. And they're moving northeast. This cell is moving northeastward, more towards Crystal Lake and Cary. So, if nothing else, some really heavy rain and maybe some gusty winds for Algonquin, Crystal Lake, and eventually Mundelein and Waukegan for that cell. Again, the heaviest cells that we're seeing are down here in LaSalle County. And that's what we've been really watching. Again, the Weather Service thinks they could be producing 55-mile-an-hour winds, which are certainly no joke, and velocity does suggest winds in that caliber. You can see those really bright greens becoming blues. We just watch as those move into our area. Again, they're moving at about 40 miles an hour, so probably got an it's probably about going to be about 9 to 9:15 but when the storms get here. Um, but again, this part of the storms is if we do get a tornado this evening, anywhere in the area, it would probably be this segment of storms, just because this is the part where this outflow, that cold air sinking in the storm, has not really cut off the inflow, the warm air that fuels the storm. Um, we might as well take another look up in Wisconsin. So again, we still have this surge of winds that has prompted a severe thunderstorm warning north of Milwaukee. In Milwaukee, the winds don't seem as strong. You can see the reds. Here it's red because it's outbound, just moving away from the radar. And here it's not quite as bright. So what the radar is telling us is that the winds just aren't packing as much of a punch as the segments up here, and that's where having the Doppler effect is tremendously helpful. Just want to take a look at some of the information that we're getting. All right, so no changes right now for the warnings. Let's see. If we do take a look at this trailing line of storms, now here's the thing, the reason you don't usually get a trailing line of storms this intense is that the first line of storms, which would be this one, kind of eats up all the instability. The instability, as we said, is the energy in the atmosphere for these storms to intensify. And again, just these storms really aren't producing strong winds. They're producing a lot of lightning, heavy rain, and certainly heavy rain is a concern with how much rain these areas have gotten. We probably will see flash flood warnings for places like Galesburg and guessing Macomb. I don't remember where Macomb is now on this map. Oh, that's further south. Going back here into Iowa and Missouri. But let's see. Again, still watching this, you can kind of see how. I just got a notification. Okay, that's not important. We're kind of seeing how you can kind of see how these storms have kind of taken on a bowing segment appearance, and that is a sign that they are producing more widespread straight line winds. Now, how long will these persist? We'll honestly just have to monitor. But what's that noise? I have no clue. But so far, not really seeing too much. I think the Weather Service did make the right decision to not extend the severe thunderstorm warning. That's not to say these storms can't reapproach severe limits, but I think at this point we don't have, given the lack of reports from these storms and the fact that the radar signature, while impressive, is still kind of elevated. At this point, I think they made the right decision not to extend the warning. And still a tremendous amount of lightning. Again, I've said light show multiple times today, but that's really what these storms are. In fact, I bet if you're in Aurora right now, if you look to the southwest, or Naperville, if you look to the southwest, you will probably see the lightning. In the summer, when these storms are crazy tall, they can you can often see the lightning from as much as 100 miles away. I have seen lightning from that far away. I was explaining this earlier. These are your echotops, and this basically gives us an idea of how high these storms are. And this is the good news. This is definitely good. If we go back a few frames and then watch how the storms near in approaching LaSalle County have evolved, they've been faltering a little. You can see how they've lost those yellows. The yellows are 50,000 foot high storms. And even that area with dark green is kind of thinning out a little bit. And that's certainly a sign that these storms are weakening. However, that's not to say we can't see them. Again, it's kind of this thing where the storms have a very good environment today, but they're not really able to take advantage of them because these storms are in such a messy mode right now that they're in such a messy mode that they can't really organize, despite the fact they have a lot of instability, which is the energy they need to develop. They have wind shear, which is changing of winds with height to allow these storms to sustain themselves and potentially be tornadic. It's just that they've kind of been limiting themselves with how they're oriented, and sometimes that happens, and that's a good thing. Because we don't, we don't. The last thing we want is a major tornado. Uh, yeah, I had comment about Disney World. Yeah, I was last year. I was in Belize. I was on a school trip in Belize, and I was seeing lightning from storms that were about 100 miles away. We were seeing lightning, and my friends were in the pool, and they were like, "Do we need to get out?" And I was like, "Unless they tell you to, you're probably fine because it's so far away right now." I will say, when that storm did get here, it was really scary. There was so much lightning nearby, but yeah. Um, yeah, just, I mean, each thing, I will tell you, all these lightning icons you see, they're very accurate. I have driven, when I drive in storms, sometimes I'll see nearby lightning, and it'll be really accurate. The location of it. These are all detected not through radar, the lightning icons. They're not detected through radar, they're through satellite. And honestly, it amazes me how accurate they are, given that they're detected from space. But so yeah, all of these are cloud to ground lightning strikes. Um, let's see. And I will say the fact that we're still seeing a lot of lightning with these storms tells me that they're still going to sustain themselves for a little bit. Usually, once they start producing less lightning, it's a sign that they're really starting to die out. But the fact they're still producing lightning tells me that they're still quite strong. I can show. Let me show you an example of what it looks like when. Give me a moment. Let me show you last night's storms and the lightning detection for those. Hmm. All right, here we go. You can kind of, if we look at how last night's storms behaved, again, every plus icon you see is a lightning strike, and you really see how they died out as they approached the Chicago area. And now, if I turn off lightning and show you radar, it'll take a moment to load, I think. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. You can kind of see how that line of storms just died out as they moved into the Chicago area. So lightning is a pretty good proxy that tells us how these storms are behaving. Hmm. Let's see. Just seeing. I lost a connection here. Give me a moment. There we go. I'm connected again. Okay. But again, I think the severe weather risk is really kind of dying down. I don't think we'll see another severe thunderstorm warning. It's not impossible, but it's pretty unlikely. Um, and even if you look at the velocities, they're kind of not as bright as they were earlier. Still in the 50-mile-an-hour range, but these storms don't seem to quite have that punch. And again, we were seeing how those storms, they aren't as high as they were earlier. I was showing you the echo tops, and that's why, again, for those of you joining us, we're watching what was a very robust line of storms, and now it's really kind of weakened. You can kind of see it fragment apart. And these storms, they have a favorable environment. They have the heat and the humidity and the instability to get really strong, and they have the wind profile as well, but they've kind of gotten in their own way where the cold air left behind by the old storms are moving into where the new storms are. And that kind of has been limiting themselves, and that's a good news, and that's definitely a good sign. The other thing, of course, that we're watching is the flooding, especially given that you can see for the Quad Cities, they still have about an hour of light rain. Again, you can see this is the flash flood emergency for Davenport, Iowa. A catastrophic damage threat. You don't see that very often. And again, this segment of storms, which has honestly held their strength better for whatever reason, I really can't explain why. Their slow movement has been a flooding concern. I'm sure we will see more flash flood warnings in places like Fort Madison and Galesburg, Illinois, and Lafayette. Whereas the section of the storms moving into our area, it's kind of a one and done deal. Yeah, so the enhanced risk went away because the storms have moved out of the enhanced risk. But really these storms have weakened. These storms really have weakened in the past hour or so. And really what's been going on is that there's just not been the storms have been getting in their own ways, in their own way. The environment is there for these storms to be really strong, but the storms, they bring cold air downwards, and because of how these storms are oriented, that cold, they're going into the where the last storm was, and and obviously the storm doesn't want to be in cold air because that's going to weaken it. It needs that warm, humid air to strengthen. Uh, Honestly, probably bad storms, no. A light show, yes, probably. Again, still watching. Goodness, we don't have any severe thunderstorm warnings for this line of storms until you get down here near Kansas City, which is honestly not what I was expecting. I was expecting these storms to hold up better. And that's kind of been the story of 2025. I feel like we've had so many events this year where that really just they're strong back near the Illinois-Iowa border, and then they just weaken as they get here. And it's just because of timing. Once you start to get after dark, these storms just can't sustain themselves for that much longer, especially when you don't have much warm air advection, which is warm air being pushed in with the winds. So yeah, that's the situation right now. And still watching, there's definitely gusty winds with these storms, but they're clearly nothing severe. And again, this area of strong winds will move to the northeast. Again, I bet there's probably a ton of lightning. I would. Is there a reason our area seems to get these storms after sundown more often? Not really. I think it's kind of just luck this year. I mean, plenty of times we do get storms in the day. But yeah, I think it's just coincidence this year. I don't think there's really like an explanation for that. Again, I will say the lightning with these storms is still very impressive. Let me go to the high res imagery because that'll give us a better look. Again, each icon you see is a lightning strike, and this has just been. Let's go over the past 4. This will be the last 48 minutes. And again, just it's a ton of lightning with all of this, and this is probably going to continue. And obviously, no play. I mean, you should know your lightning safety tips, but it's kind of common sense. But be indoors as these storms move through. Again, still probably very heavy rain. I would avoid driving if possible because these storms, again, very heavy rain. Not something you want to be driving in, although I will say if these storms don't start to show more of it, don't start to show more signs of strengthening soon, I probably will go in. I'll probably keep the stream active, but I'll keep the but I with the radar up, but I'll probably stop the commentary. What are the next few hours looking like? Honestly, these storms will continue to push through the area within the next few hours. I do think they'll hold up, but I don't think we should be expecting anything severe. And then we have a lot of rain behind it. Again, this is the cold pool. This is that cold air behind the storms that are driving it. Um, hmm, let's see. Hmm, Um, Honestly, and it's possible this segment of storm, because it's moving so much to the northeast, that it could end up clipping our area altogether. We'll have to see. Um, the one warning we have are, you could see these orange warnings over Lake Michigan. Those are special marine warnings, and those are for those alerts folks on boats about what's coming. You can see wind 34 knots. That's only about 40 miles an hour. But yeah, we are gonna keep watching this. Let's see. Also very interested by this line of storms behind it, now approaching Lafayette. Because models didn't really show a strong signal for something like that. But uh, let's look at velocity to see if these could potentially go severe. And there's not much. I mean, you would expect to see bright reds, indicating outbounds from the radar set in Davenport, and it's not really showing that. If you look at the one in Chicago, just because that gives it a little bit better of an angle, and that's not showing much in the way of damaging winds either. Um, I'll take a look at forecast model data. Let's look at that. The one thing I'll say is that model guidance really has not been handling these storms well. These storms have kind of been a few hours ahead of schedule. They were showing the storms moving in after midnight, and obviously it's going to be well before midnight when these storms move through. Um, hmm. So yeah, I'm just seeing. Um, but I do think we could see two rounds of rain. The first one, as these move in, the first one will be this area, and this might clip Aurora and Naperville and end up missing us to the north. We'll have to watch. And then we have this second area, and this will certainly bring heavy rain if nothing else. Um, let's see, how fast are these storms moving? So that way we can kind of get a clip of what's going on. So these storms, this was at 7. These are moving at about 30 miles an hour. So if these hold up, these still would probably be another at least 2 hours. Hmm, let's see. That was my chair. Um, they have updated the tornado watch. All of our area is still in it, except for Kane County. They've canceled the watch for Kane County now. But DuPage and Will County technically still remain in the tornado watch. Do I expect that we'll see severe weather? No, not really. Um, yeah, and honestly, these Honestly, there's just not much to talk about. This is quite unlike my first stream that I did, where at least there was widespread severe weather. As I said again, this whole system, no severe thunderstorm warnings until you get down into Missouri. There is flash flood warnings, but that's really been the only issue. So, um, tell you what, you know what? I'm silly. I forgot to change the view back. I'm sorry. Um, but yeah, I'm probably gonna go into a standby mode for now. I'm gonna keep the stream up with and I'll answer questions in the chat, but there's just not much to talk about right now. So yeah. So yeah, again, I'll keep the radar up. You can watch how these storms progress, and I'll answer questions in the chat. And again, I'll be back doing live commentary if we do get any warnings. I'm back for a moment. I'll stay on until at least 9, and then if these storms really don't show any signs of strengthening, I probably will end the stream because I'm not here to talk about. I was here to talk about severe weather, and we just don't have any warnings right now. So again, we have this area with very gusty winds that we're seeing on the velocity, but it's not anything really strong, and this will probably miss Aurora and Naperville. The more I watch this, it's taking a really northeasterly path, and I don't think it'll hit us. Um, if we watch, it just looks like it's gonna miss us altogether. Now, if we look further to the west, we have the second line of storms. Um, again, this will move into our area very late, probably after 11 p.m. It's not likely to be a severe weather risk. By then, it'll be dark. This first round of storms will have washed out the instability, not the moisture, but the warm air, warm, unstable air mass. So again, it's just not really a setup that would bring severe weather to the area. So again, we'll monitor, but I would think if we get any more severe weather anywhere in the state, it would probably be with this segment of storms going southward. But the problem is that because they're moving southward, they don't really have a favorable, they're not oriented very favorably to maintain themselves. But we'll see how they do. We do, though, have a new flash flood warning for this part of the storm, and this does have a considerable tag. That's the tag that activates smartphones. This is for places like Fort Madison, Memphis, Cameron. I did say we'd probably get flash flood warnings for this area, and I would imagine we'll have more. These storms are moving really slowly, and we can take a look at how much rain areas have gotten. Here's an estimate of the storm total accumulation. We can see approaching 3 inches of rain in spots. Sometimes this works, nope. And even if this product tells us in 1 hour how much rain has fallen, and you can see, I mean, 3 inches of rain in an hour is pretty intense. So again, that's why we have those flash flood warnings. In our area, these storms have not been quite as significant. We're only looking at rainfall rates about an inch an hour. We still do have a very moist. We do have very moist soil, a high water table, so even minor heavy rainfall could trigger flash flood warnings, but I doubt anything will right now. So yeah, that's my update. I'll go back in standby mode. I'm still monitoring comments, and I'll have the radar in motion so you can watch as these storms progress. this is probably going to be the final update, and then I'm going to end the stream because, look, I'm not here to talk about rain. So here's round one. I know this isn't really what I called round one earlier, but when I say earlier, I mean on my Instagram post. But if we follow where this is headed, straight line, it'll flip our area. And then we have more rain behind it. The reality is this just isn't, these storms, should have a favorable environment, but they just kind of haven't been oriented in a way to produce severe weather. The other thing you can see is that that outflow has kind of surged ahead of it. You can actually kind of see an outflow boundary. If you look closely on radar, watch what moves through our area. Watch that. That's that outflow boundary, that surge of cold air out ahead of the storms. My weather station, actually, I have a reading of it, just dropped a lot. Um, and that's kind of undercut these storms. Yes, there's still heavy rain in spots, but that's honestly about it. And of course some lightning. The lightning output has also kind of dropped with these. So with that, I think we're gonna end the stream. Again, thank you for watching. I know this wasn't exactly the most exciting stream. The storms kind of died out as soon as I started streaming. But we'll see. I'll see. I mean, if there's something to live stream about in before I go to college, I certainly will. So thank you guys for being here, and I'm gonna end the stream.